Let's answer a big question that a lot of people are asking right now. Can the state actually override local zoning? And the short answer is yes. Under certain circumstances, the state can step in and set rules that local governments have to follow. And that is exactly what is being proposed with SB 4060, one of the key pieces of the Illinois Build Bill. So let's break this down in plain English so you understand what that really means and how it could impact a community like Quincy, Illinois. Right now, zoning is controlled at the local level. That means the city of Quincy decides what can be built, where it can be built, and how properties can be used. For example, some areas are zoned for single-family homes, meaning one home per lot. Other areas may allow duplexes, apartments, or commercial use. These decisions are made locally based on what fits the neighborhood, the infrastructure, and the long-term plan for the city. That is part of what we call home rule, where local governments have the authority to make decisions that reflect the needs of their specific community. SB 4060 would change that in a very important way. This bill focuses on what is called middle housing. In simple terms, that includes things like duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, townhomes, and other multi-unit housing that falls somewhere between a single-family home and a large apartment complex. The goal of the bill is to increase housing supply by making it easier to build these types of units across the state. Here is where it becomes a big shift. Under SB 4060, the state would require cities to allow these types of housing in areas that are currently zoned for single-family homes. That means a city like Quincy could be required to permit multiple units on lots where today only one home is allowed. The city would still have some ability to regulate things like building size or design, but it would not be able to fully prohibit that type of development in those zones. So when people ask, can the state override local zoning, this is what they are talking about. The state is not necessarily removing all local control, but it is setting minimum rules that local governments must follow. And those minimum rules can significantly change how zoning works in practice. Instead of Quincy deciding whether or not to allow multi-unit housing in a certain area, the state would be saying this type of housing must be allowed, and the city has to work within that framework. Now let's talk about what that could look like in real life. Today, if you live in a neighborhood that is zoned single family, you generally expect that the homes around you will remain similar in size and use. Under SB 4060, over time, you could see more properties in that same neighborhood being converted or redeveloped into multi-unit housing. That does not mean it happens overnight, but it does change what is possible moving forward. And once those zoning rules are changed, they tend to stay that way. Another important piece is that this bill applies broadly. It is not tailored to just large cities or areas with high population density. It would apply across Illinois. That means Quincy, with its smaller size and different infrastructure, could be operating under the same basic zoning requirements as much larger urban areas. That is where a lot of the discussion is happening, because what works in one type of market does not always translate the same way in another. Now, to be fair, the reason behind SB 4060 is to address a real issue. Illinois does have a housing shortage. There are not enough homes being built, and that has driven up prices and made it harder for people to find housing. The idea behind this bill is that by allowing more units per lot, builders can create more housing options, which could help increase supply and improve affordability over time. That is the goal. But the question is how that goal is achieved. Because increasing supply is one part of the equation, but how that growth is managed is another. Local zoning has traditionally allowed communities to guide development in a way that fits their specific needs. It allows cities to consider things like infrastructure capacity, traffic patterns, parking availability, and the overall character of neighborhoods. When those decisions shift to the state level, even partially, it changes how that balance is managed. So can the state override local zoning? In this case, SB 4060 shows that the answer is yes, by setting minimum requirements that local governments must follow. Cities would still have a role, but it would be within the boundaries set by the state rather than having full control over those decisions. Where things stand right now is that SB 4060 is still part of the legislative process. It has been introduced and is being reviewed, discussed, and potentially amended. It is not final. That means there is still time for people to understand what is being proposed and to be part of the conversation, because once changes like this are put into place, they shape how communities grow for years to come. I'm Jackie Weisenburger, top listing agent at Happel Realtors in Quincy, Illinois, and I'm sharing this because I believe people should understand what is being discussed and how it could impact where they live. Zoning may not be something you think about every day, but it plays a huge role in what your neighborhood looks like today and what it could look like in the future. And right now, that is something worth paying attention to.